Swagatham, welcome, Jai Hind. The title of this video is If I Were the Leader of the Opposition in India for just half an hour on the 80th Independence Day of our beloved country. So, for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to be the hypothetical leader of the opposition of India, LoP of India. And I'm going to address the nation on the eve of our 80th independence, even though that day is just behind us. Now, there is a context to this. Rajdeep Sardesai has already addressed you as the Prime Minister of India. I believe it is as important, perhaps even more important, to listen to the LoP as it is to the Prime Minister. Though the situation is now quite different. We are in a situation where listening to the leader of opposition is almost an unthinkable thing. But any true Democrat will readily agree that the leader of opposition should be heard as much as the Prime Minister is heard. So therefore, the following address, please remember, for the next 20-25 minutes, I am going to be your leader of opposition. So here I go. My brothers and sisters, we cherish our freedom. So we are grateful to all who struggled and gained freedom for us. Let's remind ourselves that India became independent in 1947 and not in 2014. The India that became free only in 2014 is the India in which Mahatma Gandhi was martyred by a communal fanatic, and the India in which the legacy of constitutional democracy has come under serious stress and strain. So I want to cheer you up by taking you back to the day when we made our historic tryst with destiny. I want to share with you a realization that has come rather late to me. And that pertains to the essential work of the opposition. I today believe that the core work of the opposition has two important parts. The first is to resist the anti-people policies of the government and to safeguard the interest of the people. That's the first part. The second part, which I'm afraid we have neglected to a large extent, is at least as important, and that second part is the duty to educate public opinion. I'm afraid that as opposition parties, we have neglected this important task. So I pledge myself today to make up for it. And this address that I propose to deliver to you is an illustration of this. So I urge you, my friends, to wake up and see the sorry state in which we are at the moment. Anxiety about where we are headed is mounting all over the country. Among our youth, that anxiety is now boiling over into desperation. Of late, this hidden desperation has begun to erupt into public protests. It is significant that these protests have rekindled our faith in the future of our country much more than anything else in recent times. I refuse to give in to despair because I have faith in you, the people of India. You hold the key and not some politicians or parochial patriarchs. The nation will change for the better if you will. As Gandhi said, we have to be the change that we want to see all around us. But to be the change, we have to clearly understand what has gone wrong in our midst, or in what respect, therefore, we need to change ourselves. Friends, remember that Modi ji became the Prime Minister of India in 2014, and he began by stating his intention to be the chowkidar, the gatekeeper, the guardian of your welfare. I believe that he was not perhaps insincere about it then, but sadly for all of us, our chowkidar has now become an omnipotent God. So he believes sincerely that disagreeing with him is blasphemy, an unforgivable sin. How did that happen? That's the first thing we need to understand. Who is to blame for it? The Prime Minister as the Chowkidar or the guardian of the welfare of the people is truly a democratic idea. But the Prime Minister as the God of India is clearly, dangerously, an anti-democratic, indeed a totalitarian idea. If there is a God in democracy, it can only be the people. As the preamble to the Indian Constitution clearly states, we, the people of India, give to ourselves a constitution. So even as one individual makes himself God, we, the people of India, lose our status as citizens and we simply become worshippers who are the whims and fancies of a capricious secular God. And it's up to you to decide whether you want to be in that state or not. Modi could not have by himself brought about this dangerous perversion of our democratic ethos. He could have done so only with our complicity, which is precisely what we need to understand today. We have aided and abetted the gradual shift from being a healthy democracy towards becoming a theocratic state in which the Prime Minister is worshipped as God. Our constitution says that we are a secular democracy. How can the Prime Minister of a secular democracy even tolerate such a thought, much less entertain it with great enjoyment? Such a prospect would have shocked all, I emphasize, all of Modi's predecessors. Or for that matter, how can Modi create a situation in which only his party has the legitimacy to rule India and try to continue in office courtesy the Election Commission of India, irrespective of the will of the people? What you need to notice is that the importance, the authority, the power of the Election Commission has increased proportionate to the growing insignificance of the people of India. People's vigilance is a necessary safeguard of democracy. It is the health of national life and not some communal gain or loss that we have to guard. It is painful for me to say this, but let me say this nonetheless. We as the people of India, I include the opposition parties in this, my party included, have failed lamentably in defending our democratic heritage with its cornerstones of justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, the four foundational values foregrounded in the preamble to our Constitution. But thank God there are some belated hope-kindling indications that this is changing. And in saying this, I have particularly in mind the historic protests that the young people of India, the Gen Z, put up with heroic determination, transforming the very nature and scope of Jantar Mantar. The second, of course, is the very effective protest that the young people organized in Jharkhand. And please remember that my own party is part of the government in Jharkhand. In spite of that, I say, I appreciate what the young people have done, and I recommend to the young people of India all over the world to emulate the example set by the young people both in New Delhi and in Jharkhand. There are, alas, these are, alas, the only nationally significant democratic events in our recent history. My fellow citizens, how can we stand by our democratic traditions if we allow ourselves to be divided along caste and communal lines? Can't we see that only those who want to fool us would want to divide us and infect us with hate and hostility to each other. Also, can we be indifferent to our own plight as to the people of India must exist for the sake of a leader or a government and not the government for the sake of the people? Consider also this. Can democracy remain true to itself if accountability to the people is abandoned, especially from our own side? For example, did we hold Prime Minister Modi to account in relation to the various promises he has made, going back, shall we say, to 2014 when he promised that each of us would be richer by 15 lakhs of rupees, and the many, many promises made thereafter and conveniently forgotten so thereafter. We've not held him to account even in one instance. This I consider to be a gross failure of our democratic discipline and our own failure as citizens in a mature democracy. Politicians get out of hand when they begin to think that the people are foolish and spineless and that they will take anything lying down. And therefore, we have to now wake up to the most sacred democratic duty, which is the duty to resist. If we don't carry out our responsibilities by India, the democratic heritage of India, dictators would arise, if not today, tomorrow, and criminalize our democratic heritage. As Edmund Burke, that very outstanding parliamentarian in England, once said, the only encouragement that the perpetrators of evil need is the apathy or inaction of the good. And I'm afraid we are guilty of that indifference, that apathy. History tells us that pathological dictators are born of collective hysteria. Germany is a good example of that. In the run-up to the rise of Hitler, you see the German society being deliberately infected with mass hysteria. Now, therefore, I have to explain to you what is meant by mass hysteria. Now, people may immediately think of raving lunatics who are confined to a bedlam and all that. That's not what is meant. By mass hysteria, we mean a people who are absolutely normal in all respects except one. They'll have one collective weak spot. And that one collective weak spot makes them vulnerable to be brainwashed, misled, and used as tools. That one weakness. What is our weakness? What is the weak spot in us as Indians? Our weak spot as Indians is our religious susceptibilities. Let's make it very clear to ourselves. We tolerate any nonsense, any absurdity, any injustice if it is packaged in the colors of religion. Any crudity, any villainy, any injustice, any atrocity can be practiced with impunity under the smoke screen of religion. When a demagogue exploits our weakness of this kind, he spreads mass hysteria, which is also the function of propaganda. The hallmark of this mass hysteria is what is called systematic dissociation. That is the polarization between the two opposites in us. Now, what is typical of the human mind is, in respect of anything and everything, there will be two opposites present more or less at the same time, in close proximity. For example, you decide to form some New Year resolutions. But the moment you form those new resolutions, there will be another force pulling you away from it, which is the reason why almost all our New Year resolutions die young. Or you decide to do something, and immediately something else begins to be active in your mind, pulling you in the opposite direction. So two opposites coexist in our mind all the time. For example, the tendency to believe and the tendency to be critical, the tendency to cooperate and the tendency to wonder if you should really cooperate. So that's a sign of your inner health, your balance. So in a state of hysteria, this inner balance is completely upset. The polarization between the two opposites, which is the normal state, which actually generates this inner debate within us to decide whether or not this is indeed what we should be doing, or which makes us examine the pros and cons. That's a sign of our mental health. That will be completely ruined when we are in the state of mass hysteria. When we are brought into the grip of this mass hysteria, we lose the ability to have this inner debate. We succumb easily to the brainwashing to which we are subjected, and we become people with a one-track mind, incapable of considering alternatives, with a serious mental disability. This also means that we lose the intellectual ability to examine any contrary evidence. Once we are gripped by this mass hysteria, no matter what evidence comes against the pretensions of a demagogue, we will not examine them, we will not take them seriously, we will not even lend our ears to them, because we have lost the capacity for objectivity to consider the pros and cons and to arrive at a just and rational assessment of the situation. We become mental slaves. For example, when someone claims to be of divine origin, if we were not in the grip of mass hysteria, or those who are not in the grip of mass hysteria would ask some questions. How can a person of divine origin be self-centered? Or how can a person of divine origin tell lies as and when it suits his convenience? Or how can a person of divine nature spread hate and hostility among people? How can such a person be intolerant and insecure about dissent? Or just think, how can one who is God be afraid of demagoguery Naxals? But these questions will not arise in the minds of those who are in the grip of mass hysteria. So, in a state of mass hysteria, people can be persuaded to accept even an ordinary man as a demigod or even God himself. Also, in a state of mass hysteria, will people relate to their political God in blind faith? Blind faith. In a state of mass hysteria, people will relate to their political God in blind faith. That's andhabhakt, which has now become a very respectable political terminology, andhabhakt. This makes us believe whatever is proclaimed for public consumption. In the state, whatever is dished out to us, we will lap up and consider that to be the ultimate truth. A similar situation existed in Germany, therefore let's try and understand that. Hitler used two important strategies to project himself as the god of Germany, the savior of Germany. One was that he announced a grand project. That project was the Aryan superiority theory, the idea that Germany was destined to rule the world. So it's a grand project. So Hitler would pick up Germany from its ruins and exalt it to the greatest, most glorious nation in the world. In the Indian context, Modi ji has announced the intention to build New India. It's a grand project. The second strategy that Hitler used was to aggravate national insecurity and grievance. The famous stab in the back grievance, stab in the back. Hitler told the people repeatedly with all the rhetorical power he could command that apart from the external enemies to Germany, there were some internal agents that are constantly conspiring and colluding to bring about the complete dismantling of Germany, the internal force. There were the Marxists, there were the Jews, there were also the trade union leaders. Now it's up to you to decide whether or not these patterns are paralleled in our context. So this is clearly aimed at intensifying the already activated mass hysteria, and this creates the ideal climate for demagogues to become dictators. So we have an urgent democratic duty in such a context, and that duty is to recognize the collective hysteria activated and aggravated in our midst, and the fact that we are in the grip of that mass hysteria. So we have also a duty to emerge from this darkness of mind, the darkness that has invaded our heart and our soul, into the light of rational thought and scientific timber as envisaged by the architects of our Constitution. I'm referring to Article 51A. So the core democratic truths must be recognized. No God will come and solve your problems or mine. In a democracy, you have to solve your problems, and you have the power to do so, provided you use it with responsibility, discernment, and wisdom. But if you work against your own interest, and you aid and abet forces that are out to make fools of you and ruin your future, can there be any hope either for you or for your country? The least you can do, therefore, is to use your power as citizens in a democratic country and exercise your voting power, the power of your vote, to protect your own interests. If there is one advice I wish to give to you, it is this: choose the path of truth. Stay steadfastly on it. Do not patronize the propaganda of untruth. Do not entertain agents of hate who thrive by dividing and fooling the people. Hold those in power accountable for their omissions and commissions. Ensure that all citizens get justice and also their share in the national cake. Your vote is your democratic sword, your legitimate democratic sword. Use it well, and use it to fight for the health of Mother India. Do not limit your patriotism to singing a song or an anthem, great and beautiful though they are. A patriot is one who respects the soul of India and protects the country from all destructive and divisive agendas and ideologies. We have deviated from the tryst with destiny that the architects of our freedom envisaged. It is time to return to the ideal of unity and diversity, and to our spiritual vision of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Jai Hind.